My mother is in the living room watching Hotel Transylvania 2. My sister is in her bedroom doing work. So naturally, I thought that this was the perfect time to record. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I will be talking about nothing in particular. How are you? How's your week going? I imagine it's been much the same. Have you had a good Easter? Because I believe it's still Easter Monday. It's strange. Easter used to be a big thing as a child, but when you give up sugar and you no longer care about Easter eggs, it completely changes your opinion of it. Also, I think more about the actual pagan history of Easter now, and that matched up with Christianity leads to a whole load of questioning that I just can't spend 4 days out of my year doing. So I read instead, and hopefully there's either a vlog up today or a vlog up tomorrow. Because it's recorded, it just depends how I'm feeling in terms of editing. Easter, celebration of summer or spring, one of the two, and then we add on the whole thing of Christ and he is risen, and that leads you to question resurrection and why do we just resurrect the one guy when there've been many people who did stuff for Christianity before him. And then that brings you into another round of questioning as to, did he actually ever die, or was it just a tax avoidance scheme? I don't know. I wasn't around 2,000 years ago. It really does mean that I have to look into the historical Christ more, doesn't it? I keep talking about doing it and I keep never doing it. I talk about it every Christmas and I'm talking about it at Easter. I even had my friend send me her essay that she wrote based on Jesus Christ and feminism, and I haven't read it yet, and I must have had that going back months now. But this is not the place to discuss my opinions on Christianity and the history of religion. These are things that I should go out of my way and research myself. Last week when I spoke to you, I said that I was going to finish Monkey by Wu Cheng'En. No, Wu Cheng'En. I said I was going to finish it on the Tuesday. I didn't do that. I ended up not finishing this till Friday because I don't care for rushing books anymore. I feel like it mars the experience for me to rush a book. And so reading it at my own pace, only doing it in short bursts, I'm really enjoying that at the moment. And whilst I talk about competing with myself, I also don't care enough, because if it means I'm going to read more closely and enjoy a book more, then that's what I'm going to do. I believe that Monkey is a largely abridged version of Journey to the West, which was supposedly a huge amount of legend written by Wu Cheng'En. And then Arthur Waley translated it into this, which was Monkey. Apparently there were translations previously. This is currently the most famous, and it takes out a lot of the poetry, which Arthur Waley said didn't actually translate well into English. And I think that had a translator seen it, they would have been able to do a good job, but I think that it would have taken more time. And either way, Arthur Waley's small snippets of poetry in here were mildly dire. That being said, I would be interested in seeing a full narrative, because reading it like this, whilst the bits do connect, there'll be times when the characters will say, it's been 3 years since we were in such and such a place, and then suddenly there's a jump of 27 years, and you don't feel like you've been on that journey with the characters. You spend quite a lot of time at the start getting to the part where Monkey finds himself cast out of heaven and trapped, but I knew that was going to happen because I'd seen the latest TV show, Legends of Monkey. In terms of that TV show, I have since found out that it has been accused of whitewashing, something that I didn't recognise myself at the time, and I just want to call myself out on that. This book did do what I wanted it to do. It reminded me of the myths and legends that I used to read when I was younger, and so I appreciated that. It was told in the same sort of style, and so it came with nostalgia for me. I don't think that it's the best book in the world, but I understand what people were saying about it being humorous now. It's definitely something that I would go back and I would reread, simply because there's something cozy about it, there's something philosophical in there, there's something humorous, and it has fantastical elements that I could enjoy. I have finally read Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. This has been on my shelves for on and off for 12 years now. And after reading Ghostwritten, I definitely feel that David Mitchell was practicing writing with Ghostwritten and this style. I can't remember who put that in a comment either on one of my videos or on Twitter. I have decided that I agree with that. Ghostwritten did feel like practice for Cloud Atlas. In here, it felt like each of the stories was more linked than in Ghostwritten. There was more interconnectivity between the stories. I liked the discussions that were being had. The novel as a whole ended up feeling more cyclical, especially when we got to the end. And I liked the way that he did it, where each story ended at a certain place. Then you had the larger 80-page story in the centre before the stories each concluded as they had done. So it felt very much like, I don't know how to describe it, it felt like it was zooming in at the start and then going out again. And it was just great. There were some stories in here that I preferred more than others, and I would probably, if I were to go back, I would probably favour some stories over the others, as in, now that I've read it once, I think that I would flip back and forth through the book, and I did find it difficult to read that rather large section in the middle due to the dialect it was told in. Whilst it did round off all of the stories and connect them more, there was just something lacking for me that meant even though I'd been flying through this book a bit, that slowed me down. It just did change my experience of reading it, in that that became more of a slog then to try and get through that one, because I was constantly trying to figure out what was being said. David Mitchell is still talking about politics, and he's still talking about how easy it is to abuse a nation and how easy it is to claim ownership over other people. It's difficult when any author is trying to tackle racism and slavery, and so doing it in the way he did by also mirroring it with stories that were about corporations trying to control little people just to make more money added some balance that was much needed. I am looking forward to reading more from David Mitchell in future. I wish I had the Bone Clocks, and it's a shame that the libraries are not open, because I know that they have it there. I have Slade House here, but I don't want to read Slade House until I've read the Bone Clocks, and I also have Number 9 Dreams, so that'll probably be the next one I read, but not until May now. I read my first book for the next round of the Booktube Prize, and that was Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. I can't discuss this yet. You can expect my full thoughts on this in June. As always, I have to talk about the television I've been watching, because I have finally watched the first episode of The Mandalorian. I don't need to mention it again that I don't like Star Wars, and I'm glad that I didn't need to have watched Star Wars to understand this TV show. Someone told me it was like a Western. It is very much like a Western, but had you told me who the writer and director was, I would have jumped on this straight away. So yes, he directed and produced The Lion King. I think he did something with The Jungle Book as well, and I just enjoy the visual that he creates. I enjoyed that first episode. Obviously, I had the ending spoiled for me, because there is nothing that isn't spoiled when social media exists. Which brings me into like talking about the Booktube Prize, but I'll just put a pin in that and come back to it later. But yeah, in terms of The Mandalorian, I would definitely go on watching that again, and you know, there's only 5 episodes on there. If I did 1 episode a day, I haven't been doing that, but I could easily finish it by the end of the week. Now, we all know, if they'd stopped at episode 4, I'd have watched all that in a day. Also, I have discovered that you all have been taking advantage of my Other Folks' Videos playlist, which is great. As you know, YouTube got rid of our liked playlists way back when, and so if you want recommendations of other YouTubers and content creators, then please do go to my Other Folks Videos playlist, because that is now where I put every single video that I'm watching. Yes, this is mildly difficult, because sometimes I recognise that I'm not actually watching all the people who were subscribed to me and commented on my videos, and I can imagine there's some shame there. But do know, I am trying to get to everyone's videos in my subscription feed. There is a lot more content currently, and so sometimes I will just try and get to a booktuber a day. Sometimes I'm not even commenting on the videos, I am just putting them in there because I do not have the time necessary to properly formulate a response, and I want people to go and view all of these people because they're all amazing. Saying that, are there any booktubers that you think that I ought to be watching? Some videos that I have enjoyed this week have come from Juan of Bookish Islander, who is producing videos that are very high quality indeed. It was his wrap-up, and so there's some great production values going on over there. But also, on top of all of this, the way he does his wrap-up by connecting all of the different books and picking one element and then using that to discuss the further books was just brilliant. And does that, and then obviously got to commend Sarah of Hardcover Hearts. I have been watching a lot of her videos recently, and again, the eloquence astounds me. Obviously got to include Doris of all the books, Emily of Novelle Novels. Shall we shove a fifth in there? Who shall we put in at number 5? The 5th Power Ranger. Naturally, at the moment, I can't think of anybody else. So we're just going to leave it at 4 people for now, who I really believe you ought to be watching, as well as leaving you a link to the playlist so you can go and see everybody else you ought to be watching as well. And I just thought of a 5th, Tia of Tia and all the books. Or Rainy of Rainy Day Reads. There are so many. I could literally name nearly 300 people that you ought to be subscribed to. And that is why it takes me a long time to get through all these videos. I could watch YouTube the entire day through on double speed and still not get through half the videos that are appearing daily in my subscription feed. What I wanted to talk about in relation to social media affecting and spoiling films and TV shows comes down to help me in terms of the BookTube Prize. With the BookTube Prize, we aren't allowed to discuss our thoughts on the books until we've gone through our judging, they've been ranked, and they're there. Now, with the first round, I'm not going to dwell on the fact that the books that I thought were at the top didn't make it through. I have been looking at it through a positive lens of this happened because I wasn't able to discuss the books with people, so I just had to go through with my own thoughts and opinions of what I liked. And I mentioned that a lot in the video. And doing that has really, even though it's quite recent, has changed the way I view looking at books and not listening to other people's opinions, because recently reading popular books has proven to me that I don't necessarily care for what is popular. That's not me trying to be this trendy contrarian, because there are some books that have gone through to the BookTube Prize that I hope are going to make it quite far. What I'm saying is, because social media wasn't there to maybe affect the way I thought about it, or I wasn't able to have any sort of discussion. I wasn't sure what I was getting into. I didn't know what these books were about. I just had to trust my own gut and trust what I liked. Whilst I watched The Mandalorian because I'd been told it was like a Western before that, I wouldn't have watched it because Star Wars. But that is me jumping on a trend and I'm aware of that. As I say, contrarian. And it also left me questioning why I review books. Am I looking for some sort of validation from my fellow readers? Am I watching reviews for that validation as well, trying to find people who have the same opinions as me? Because I do tell everybody, I'm glad you have, if they liked a book that I didn't like, I tell them, I'm glad you found something in the book that I didn't. And so then I wonder, well, am I searching for people that want the same things I want from books, or am I just looking to share my thoughts and have discussions with people that may further my opinions or change my opinions? In terms of women talking, I only had my own thoughts to go on with this book. I'm not going to go into it again, but if you go and watch my BookTube Prize video, then you can see what I thought of it. Afterwards, people got in touch and told me more about the context surrounding this book. That discussion and the conversations that I was able to have led me to not change my thoughts currently, because they can't do that, but to show me what the author was trying to do and make me think that I'm actually going to go and reread this, revisit it, knowing the context behind the book. And my opinion might change, my opinion might not, but it will be more informed. I'm grateful for that discussion. Naturally, I don't think it'd happen for every single one of the books. I don't think if someone came to me and said this was what Anne Patchett was trying to get at with The Dutch House, I don't think I would give it another chance, because I know that I don't get on with Anne Patchett's prose. But in terms of Miriam Toews, I thought that she could write well. I just don't think that as a novel it did much. But then I have to think about books like Patsy by Nicole Dennis-Benn. This character goes on more of a journey emotionally and thematically than have much happen on the page. And so then I have to think, well, maybe that's what's happening here. And women talking, it's more about this conversation and this discussion. And that's what the book is. Maybe I wanted more from the book that was never promised to me. Contentious at the time, and we'll give it a reread with more context in mind. But in terms, again, I hadn't seen anyone talk about that book previously, so I hadn't had this whole thing of social media beforehand or people beforehand trying to inform me in any way of what I was getting into. It has made me question just how much social media has to answer for in terms of reviewing things, consuming media, and also in terms of everything being turned into a meme nowadays in terms of movies and television and even music videos. And I feel like a lot of the time, unless it's meme worthy, that it isn't getting the recognition it deserves. And also that was actually going to be a topic for another video, so you're not getting that video now. Great stuff. I should actually say, I know that last week I was talking about writing and how I'd deleted Scrabble. I did delete Scrabble. And I did end up actually writing, so I mentioned it on Twitter, but I'll mention it here as well. The final Doris book has grown darker thematically and in terms of storytelling than the previous 3 books, but I always knew it would have to go here. It's still humorous, it's still light-hearted. I've changed the entire format of the books. Previously, Our Doris and Indisputably Doris were both books that went to 10 monologues in each book. They told an overall story arc similar to a radio series, which was sort of the thing I was going for at the time, trying to emulate Ellen Bennett. I changed it in Doris Ahoy because the story became quite large, so that is more like 2-hour-long specials, if we were to call it that. I liked the format in Doris Ahoy, and even An Heir to Murder has informed this book somewhat. And I was thinking, it's okay to change the format if that is going to improve the story. And this time around, I did have a plan for 10 more monologues. Over time, that might change. I can see where I could cut 2 out or where they need editing more. But currently, I am about to end the 3rd chapter of Royally Doris, which will end part 1. Because with this story, I have 3 parts and then 1 final special, which is an extra, which I could have released separately, but I think as a rounding off as the series, it will work in its own right. I'm quite happy to be reaching the end of part 1 today. This will lead into a rather dark middle section where we're going to learn more about Doris's backstory, because people all the time have always said to me, would I ever consider releasing a book set during Harold and Doris's youth, a prequel, so that we could see all these characters when they were younger? I have always said no, and the reason I have always said no is because the characters' histories are within the pages of the books. I didn't want to tell a story about how the characters became who they are. I wanted to talk about characters who you wouldn't expect to grow, being able to grow further, and the history is in the books. The history has always been in the books. From page 2 of Our Doris, we go back to 1956 and we show Doris and Harold when they were younger, and that continues throughout their married life. I am not telling their history. I mention their history. You know who they are, so you don't need prequels. The next 3 chapters, part 2 of Royally Doris, really do go back, and we find out more about how certain rivalries came in place, and we find out more about just why Doris was brought up with a cousin instead of her parents. And if you've read An Heir to Murder, you will know that by now. It's scary, I won't deny that, because the further I get with this story and how each chapter feels more final, each story feels like we're coming to an end, and there's this sense of achievement rising that I'm finally going to have completed an entire series. But there's also this sense of dread of, but what's next? And I know people want the next Alice book because they've got in touch with me and they've said, when is the next Alice book coming out? But after this, after Royally Doris is finished, I definitely will be taking a break from series fiction. I have said before how the sequels to An Heir to Murder are planned, and I still plan on writing them. There's no change there, but I do want to take some time to do something different. This week I'm going to finish writing part 1. I'm going to try and go straight into part 2, but with reading for the Booktube prize, I don't know how much time I'll have. I am hoping the book gets finished this year. I don't know that I'll publish it this year, maybe early next year. You have had 2 books off me in the last year. As always, we'll see whether I get the book finished, how things go, and what I'm inspired to write next, because I can't think about other projects outside of planning them until I've properly completed Our Doris's story. And that's me. If you want to discuss any of the things I've talked about in this video, then please feel free to do so in the comments. You can also contact me via Twitter, via Instagram. I've even got a Facebook I rarely use. But feel free. I hope that you got something out of this video besides sheer boredom, and until next time, that is all.